Welcome to the Matriarchy Times podcast. This is our first episode, and I'd like to tell you a bit about Matriarchy Times and its mission. So, this community, the Matriarchy Times, was formed out of a need for a substantial change in the way our world is running. Since we are new to the podcast world, I am aware that there are so many people around us who have not even had the privilege of listening to a podcast or even hearing the word podcast. As much as it's normal in our lives, there are people in our world for whom oppression and unfairness is normal. It's normalized to the extent that they do not even know that they're actually in a bad situation. So we're here to talk to you about a better way for every human being in the world to live and thrive. And this is under matriarchy, a female-led world where we can live according to feminine values. My name is Farah, and I am a community moderator at Matriarchy Times.
And hello, everyone. I'm Purnima. I'm a content writer and a moderator for Matriarchy Times.
So, Purnima, how's your day?
Um, it, Today was a slow day. I took off a day from work and I was able to get some stuff done, so it's a good day.
Yeah, a day off is always a good day.
Yeah.
So, what are we going to talk about first? Shall we go ahead and talk about what it's like to have another day in the patriarchy?
Oh, yeah. I think there's plenty to say about living in the patriarchy. Um, so there's an incident that I want to talk about that I'm sure most of you are familiar with, and with what's going on in India right now. And I'm, of course, referring to the rape of the 31-year-old female trainee doctor in the hospital that she was working in. So this case has just become a sensation, a media sensation in India. And I'm going to quote an article that was published online so you guys can know what the latest news is relating to the incident. So this is from BBC's official website. Doctors in India have held a national strike, escalating the protest against the rape and murder of a female colleague in the West Bengal city of Kolkata. More than 1 million were expected to join the strikes as hospitals and clinics across the country turned away non-emergency patients. The Indian Medical Association described last week's killing as a crime of barbaric scale due to the lack of safe spaces for women, and asked for the country's support in its struggle for justice. Protests against the attack and calling for the better protection of women have intensified in recent years after a mob vandalized the hospital where it happened. The association's president, R.V. Asokan, told the BBC doctors have been suffering and protesting against violence for years, but that this incident was qualitatively different. If such a crime can happen in a medical college in a major city, it shows that everywhere doctors are unsafe, he said. A volunteer who worked at the hospital has been arrested in connection with the crime. The case has been transferred from local police to India's Central Bureau of Investigation, following criticism at the lack of progress. More incidents of rape have made headlines in India since the woman's death, and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said monstrous behavior against women should be severely and quickly punished. So, Farah, what are your thoughts on this incident?
So, just touching on what you said about the number of rape incidents reported since this incident, I don't think that this incident caused more rape, actually. I think it's just that people have found some courage to speak out and report because this is a major kind of block, kind of limitation that women face, like they don't want to talk about it. Because if we're talking about this case, like our listeners, if you are a father, an uncle, or a friend of a girl or a woman, I want to read you some disclaimers from the World Population Review. This is a website which compiles data and statistics of things happening around the world. So there's a page in that called Global Rape Statistics, and this is right at the top. It says accurate rape statistics are hard to obtain as many victims don't report due to reasons like embarrassment, fear of reprisal, or insufficient laws. So I'll repeat that. it's hard to obtain accurate rape statistics because many victims don't report. And they don't report it due to embarrassment, fear of reprisal, or insufficient laws. So now imagine your best friend is a woman and she has faced a terrible ordeal and she has told nobody. I mean, not even you know. And it may be your own wife, teenage daughter. She just won't tell anyone because the world has made her believe it's her fault. But for the rest of her life, she will go about with one eye looking behind her. She will never fully trust anyone again. And why is that? I can read you another statement that highlights this. It says that in the US, rape statistics reveal a severe issue with a high frequency of incidents, significant PTSD or post traumatic stress among victims, and a majority of perpetrators being acquaintances. So it's usually someone she knew, someone she trusted. So many people openly kind of support patriarchy, but in secret, in their hearts, they know something is not right. So they're too afraid to speak up. So this is the state of the world at the moment. And so if this incident, as sad as it was, if it's going to cause a difference or if it's going to bring about a change, I think her life will have whatever she went through. It will help someone else. It will be good for someone else in the future. That's the only way that we can get something out of this, other than the fact that it was ridiculously horrific.
Yeah. I think speaking of change, I don't think this is the first time that a gang rape case has been sensationalized in the media in India. I think you might remember, I think it was a couple of years ago, like maybe 8 or 10 years ago, there was an incident of a college student and her boyfriend attacked in a bus while they were on the way home from the movie, and she was viciously gang raped in the bus, um, and
I
they had
don't know. I
no
didn't know about
reaction.
it as
Yeah,
news, but I saw the TV series that they had made about it called
yeah,
Daily
and
Crime.
that was like such a long time ago, and I think people were calling. They were such huge calls for change back then as well, on social media, in the news, and I don't know if anything's really changed since then. Does it mean that this will change anytime soon?
I
The
think
action
that
of
the
men?
main difference that we will be
Yeah,
able to see now is that more people are talking about it. More
yeah,
people are talking about um like how society has been affected. More people are aware. Like at that time, people shouting for a change, they were not backed up by anything that was happening in society around them. There were no supportive groups. There were no people who kind of spoke out against things that are happening. So I think that there is more support for something for a change now. There is much more support for a change, as well as there is a lot of support for no change, which I think you know what I'm talking about.
mm. Yeah, I think that I've seen some reactions online to the case, and it's definitely not divided. I think most people are absolutely unanimously disgusted by what happened. But then on the flip side, there's not all men
Yeah,
rhetoric. And it's like, well, it's not all men, but it's always men. Why is that?
that that is the refrain, I guess. I
So,
think there's a lot of acceptance that happened in the past, and people didn't want to kind of point fingers. There were women who were saying, I don't want to do this, it will destroy their life. But the man who did it didn't think about that. So women have always been, in our feminine values, we are more empathetic, we are more generous. So we always kind of try to, cover up, especially since, like I said, it's almost always someone you know. So I think women trying to protect these people has just been instinctive. So that's what has happened.
especially when it's like their sons or their brothers.
Yeah.
As women, we have it in us to love and be compassionate and forgive. And we can't let that get in the way of our need for justice, I think. That's my takeaway from all of this and the reactions.
Yeah. So we know that matriarchy will be an answer. We know that matriarchy will actually solve a lot of these problems, but there are a lot of people who don't understand what matriarchy is, so they're against it and they're pessimistic about it, and they're very kind of, spreading negative propaganda and turning things around in a way that, twisting it in a way that, is not really what it's all about. So I'm glad that at least we as a community are here trying our best to kind of give the positive side of it, trying to show people what it's actually about. I hope that we can reach enough people, and I hope that the people who are actually like listening to us and getting, inspired by what we say, or can talk to someone else about it. And if it becomes a topic of conversation, I think we can move forward at a better pace. So we'll move on then. We'll tell our listeners here today what is a matriarchy.
Mhm.
So for everyone who has been misinformed, I just want to tell you and firmly establish with you what a matriarchy isn't, which I think will help. So a matriarchy is not the opposite of a patriarchy. So when we approach people with knowledge of patriarchy, there is an automatic assumption that it will just be like the world we are living in now, except that the current positions of influence and power will be held by women. So, by definition, a matriarchy is a form of social organization in which women hold the primary power, authority, and responsibility in society. So, okay, I know this sounds confusing because that sounds exactly like the opposite of patriarchy, but there is a difference. And this difference lies completely in the intention. So, and the values of our leaders. Patriarchal leaders seek to dominate and control. They want to kind of oppress, they want the power, they want everyone to listen to them, do what we say or else. But in a matriarchy, there's cooperation and they want to lead in like the definition of leading, like being an example, and they will nurture their followers with empathy and love. So, our supporters of matriarchy, if you're listening, you know where I'm coming from. So I want to take a moment to talk to people here who are against matriarchy. I know that it's difficult with social media, it's difficult with news, it's difficult with, you know, if you read the comment section of a post, you get thrown in all different directions. It's very hard because some people sound very convincing. But I'd like to please ask you, before you kind of cement your ideas in your head, like about what the matriarchy is and whether you're with it or against it, try to, get a bit more information. And our page, Matriarchy Times, is a good place to find information. And we write many articles with many different viewpoints. We don't just, kind of try to brainwash you into thinking, oh, matriarchy is the best. No, that's not what we're doing. We're actually writing with facts, with proof, and we are hoping that there will be more people around the world who can hear our message. And I don't know, like, I just don't want people to go forward with the wrong meaning, wrong ideas. So I'm pleading with you, please try and get informed better.
Yeah, I think this is just the beginning of our struggle.
Matriarchy has worked before. I mean, people we have spoken to, like who are authorities on this subject, they tell us our world actually began as a matriarchy. And there are still tribes around the world that still thrive under these matriarchal structures.
Mhm.
So I think that also affects, like if you grow up in an environment where you respect women, where women are respected in front of you, the way your dad treats your mom is a big part of how you grew up thinking about women. So you hear about people's trauma, you hear about people's, you call it mental issues, but it's actually, just your child grows up and does something crazy and you just think what's wrong with them. This society has ruined them, but then it could have been you as well. You never know.
Yeah, I think there's like this paradox with how society treats women that we're held to a high standard and we're put on a pedestal, but for all the wrong reasons, I guess. Especially when it comes to mothers. I mean, in our culture, mothers are worshipped as special beings and like almost like goddesses, but in real life, women are really treated so horribly.
Yeah, you find like people who kind of get mad when they have to give up a seat in a bus. I mean, it's not such a big deal, you know.
Yeah,
Like just allowing her to sit down. It's not because she's trying to take advantage of the fact that she's pregnant, but it's actually really difficult to keep standing for a long time.
yeah,
And men will never get that. Men will never understand that. It's hard to tell them, you know, because everything that comes out of our mouths sounds like an excuse to them.
yeah.
It,
I think that's where, if it's okay, I'd like to segue into our next talking point. I'm the lucky person that gets to dive briefly into everyone's favorite subject, the red pill movement.
yes, please do. I'd
Yeah,
love to hear about it.
yeah. I know we've had several interesting conversations on our Discord channel referencing the red pill movement and the manosphere and its impact on men, women, and society. So I just want to briefly get into how the movement came to be as how I understood it. So I don't know, Farah, if you've seen the movie The Matrix, the one with Keanu Reeves.
Many times.
Many times. So yeah, so this movie is kind of set in a dystopian future where humanity is enslaved by machines. And the main character's name is Neo, and he's just a regular guy who works a regular job. And the reality is that Neo and everyone around him live in a computer simulation referred to as the Matrix. So the Matrix is designed by machines to control humans and keep them in the dark about the fact that they're basically enslaved. So Neo is freed from the Matrix by another character called Morpheus, who's kind of like his mentor. He becomes his mentor, and basically the story is about them leading a rebellion against the machines. So in the movie, there's a scene where Morpheus offers Neo a choice between he could take the blue pill or the red pill. So if he took the blue pill, then he would go back to living in the virtual world of the Matrix, like nothing ever happened, and he can be ignorant of the truth. Or he can take the red pill and experience the world for what it truly is. And so this is where the idea came from. And this kind of encapsulates what the modern red pill movement is all about. So as far as I know, the red pill followers believe that they're literally Neo inside the Matrix and that they're shining, they take the red pill and then they get to shine light on the things that they believe that society and the media are keeping in the shadows by revealing the truths that people don't want to hear or the truths that they believe are hidden by mainstream narratives and political correctness. And of course, this kind of a movement is definitely attractive to young men who kind of feel disillusioned with traditional gender roles and societal expectations. But basically, from what I've seen online, which is where I first encountered this movement, it seems to just be an excuse to complain about women and how everything's women's fault and how society places women on a pedestal and keeps men at the bottom. And yeah. And so, like this, the rise of the Red Pill movement and the manosphere, for instance, it's created this online echo chamber of misogynistic rhetoric and extremist views that are just so toxic. And as ridiculous as some of the stuff we see online, these ideas have actually had a significant impact on society as we know it. So it is hard for us to address any issues faced by women and the importance of matriarchy without touching on the subject of the red pill movement from time to time. So I think we can expect to be talking about this in the future episodes too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Because, yeah, like you said, people will always latch on to evidence of what they believe to be true. So if
Mhm.
someone is saying something they want to hear, they'll definitely move forward with that. It's the same like during an election, if you hear a politician like kind of trying to promise you something that you wanted in society, then you'll be like, oh, he's bringing the change I want, so I'm going to go behind him. So
Yeah.
that kind of following is following the red pill movement. I don't know much about it, but from what you said, very thank you. Nice explanation. Like I kind of got it all in one go, which I didn't expect.
Mhm.
Uh, so for our listeners, could you kind of like tell them what misogyny actually means? Like unlike the skewed version that people are throwing around.
Yeah, misogyny, um, basically these men believe that women are manipulative, dishonest, selfish, and they refuse to see the systematic um, ways in which women are being oppressed by the patriarchy.
So, what can we now, since we're seeking to build a matriarchy in our society, what do you think our biggest challenge will be? Like, for me, I think that it will be the fact that people believe in the patriarchy for so long that,
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdle is breaking patriarchal conditioning for men and for women too. Because if men can't do it on their own, women, there are women out there who stand behind them and help them. And we need to, I think what we need to do is kind of help women identify more with their gender instead of identifying with men and their issues. Not that they're
yeah,
not.
but yeah, they don't realize like just to survive in the patriarchy that we have to kind of, become men. I just saw this news that misogyny is going to be treated as terrorism in the UK. It's actually an
Ukraine
act of terror if you go to think about it. I mean, they're oppressing a whole
yeah,
gender.
yeah,
That's like 50% of the population.
yeah. I think men have been devaluing women for so long that they don't even see it when they do it. It's just second nature to them.
I feel bad for them. I also feel bad for the women who kind of allow it
Hmm.
in some sense, like women who are standing up for them. Like, I feel sad for them because, they actually think that something good is happening to them. So that kind of brainwashing is going to take a lot of work to kind of get through.
Hmm.
So, like I was saying, we have been trained to kind of like to be a leader, to be kind of promoted in your workplace. You have to be tough as a guy. You have to be tough. You have to kind of, not care about people around you. You have to show little to no sympathy or empathy. So conditioning is something that has happened without us knowing it. We haven't even realized it has been happening to us, and that's dangerous as well as harmful. Like you said, for women who have lost connection with their feminine side, because we were having a conversation. I don't want to give any spoilers, but one of our future episodes will have a conversation where our guest was going on to say about how harmful it is for women to be disconnected from her feminine energy, that it was physically harming her to be disconnected from her feminine side, that she felt confused, she felt sick, she felt, like she couldn't function properly, like, and it was all due to kind of, being put in a role that was so stressful and against her, natural kind of existence.
I think there's this misconception that femininity is weakness, but no, it's a strength that's unique to us, to women, and it's about time that women understood it and men too.
Yeah, it's just that men don't know how softness can be strength,
Mm. Yeah,
how
that's a problem.
silence can be power. Yeah.
I think that explains a lot of the mental health issues among men, and that's
Mm.
backed up by statistics. It's not like just us talking about it. It's
Yeah, you have to blame like the whole generations of people who kind of thought little boys don't cry. Come
yeah,
on, little boy, you don't cry. You're a man. Man up. So harmful.
yeah,
And it's been
yeah.
men should be allowed to cry.
And that's they can do that under matriarchy. They can embrace that feminine energy inside of them that they have too, and instead of just
Like,
pressing it,
yeah,
suppressing it.
if they can like see that matriarchy is not going to be like there is even a section of men who are against matriarchy just because they're afraid that they're going to get the same treatment that they give women while we were under the patriarchy.
I
And
think
that's
that's
hilarious.
where
Yeah.
most of the pushback comes from because they're afraid that we're going to do to them what they did to us. And it's like, dude,
That's
you-
like hilarious to me.
it's like the lack of self-awareness is just funny.
I just want everyone to know, like everyone listening, Matriarchy is not going to be a reversal of power. That's not going to happen. Don't worry. It's going to just be, we're looking for equality. Matriarchy is about equality. It's not about one being better than the other. Just because we say female led, it just means feminine led. We're going to change the leadership styles, leadership values. Everyone will have a place in the matriarchy. Of course, um, these people who say, like, we hate men, that's not us. We don't hate men, we love men. We need them. Everyone is needed for a society to function. Otherwise, there won't be two genders, there would just be one. So I just want that message out there as well.
Yeah, we don't hate you, men.
Not at all. I mean, I was just, this is completely off topic, but I was just watching this video in the afternoon. This whole compilation of these grandkids who like bypass their grandmother and run towards their grandfather when the grandparents come visiting. It was so cute and it was so funny. I thought it was really sweet, that the grandparents, the grandfather was seen like someone so
Mm.
important in a child's life. Like he literally like just like circles around the grandmother, like avoiding her open arms and run to the grandfather who's standing behind. So when I saw that, I was like, yeah, this is what we need. We need like caring, nurturing men who, you know, like these kids are running to them because they're caring and nurturing, not the kind of men that some people have to grow up with where, when their dad comes home, like the kids are scared.
Mm.
Um, I had my dad actually had a bad childhood in that way. Like, um, he used to be so afraid when his dad used to come home. He used to drag his brother and sister and they used to hide under the bed. They know like when their dad is coming in when it's a bad day and they
Mm.
know it's going to be taken out on them. So they used to like my dad was oldest. He used to like drag his brother and sister and like kind of hide. Um, it's sad. So, but they love their dad. Like he was so good on his good days. But it's just that, men are kind of like suppressing their feelings so much that it just comes out all explosive and in the wrong way when it does come out. And man, it's so sad to think about.
Yeah, I have a similar story. I mean, I grew up in a pretty patriarchal home where my dad made all the decisions and no one ever questioned him. And we were pretty scared of him too. Like he showed no emotion and we never talked about, we never talked together. And it was just, he was kind of like this separate entity, like a god almost. And we never even looked at him because we were so scared. So yeah, I just don't want that in my future. If I ever decide to have a family and I want them to have a good relationship with their dad, my kids.
Yeah, I don't think that should be anyone's future anymore.
Yeah.
I think everyone's future has to change. And I think what we're doing here is important, not just because I'm not just saying that because we're doing it, but I'm like completely committed to this just because I know how much we need it. Like there's no other reason. Because it's kind of hard, like to change my mindset as well. I was someone who's easily, because I also grew up in like my dad was good to me. My dad was really kind, but I was also still scared of him. He kind of kept his iron rod in one hand and patted my head with the other hand. So, it was like, but he was such a nice guy. And I don't know, like, I think it would have been different if he didn't feel the pressure of being a man. Like, if he knew that he could be relaxed, if he could actually have like a normal relationship with everyone around him. It's just that these roles are kind of drilled into their heads, like you have to be tough, you have to be strict. And I don't think he wanted to be. That's the whole sad part. Like he was doing it, but I don't think he wanted to do it. It's like these men who fight wars. They don't want to be there. They don't want to be dying. They don't want to be shooting other people, like looking at their faces and shooting at them. I think you can talk about that better than me, um, but oh my God, like it's just like society has just made it so bad for men and they don't even realize it. And they don't realize that we just want everyone to be, happy.
I see it a lot in my line of work where the men at the top, they're almost always men. They they are some of the strictest and loudest and just unapproachable people ever. And I think it has a lot to do with the conditioning that they're given. Again, it's very patriarchal. It's a very patriarchal environment. So I don't expect any less from the men there.
She's working in a patriarchal environment, but she's here with us as a matriarchal representative.
Girl power.
So I think we can wind up our session for
Yeah.
today.
I think for
And
our first time, we did pretty okay. We were kind of
yeah,
nervous, weren't we?
pretty like a lot nervous. But I think we managed to get through it without much, you know,
Yeah, I think we did okay.
meandering.
We'll let our audience decide, guys. Tell us in the
Yeah.
Discord if you thought we did a good job.
Yeah, and also in the comments,
Yeah.
whoever's listening to the podcast. Yes,
Oh,
we
yeah.
have a Discord. You can join us.
Yeah.
We have a community. It's growing. We are at 100 now, 100 going strong. Check out matriarchytimes.org or check us out on Instagram. And yeah, we hope to see you soon in our future episodes. And thank you for listening.
Yeah, guys. Bye.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.